Okay, in this video we're going to be talking about cellular respiration. This is meant to help you finish filling out your notes for the guided notes section. If you were here and didn't get some things, or if you were absent today, this is to help you to be able to fill out those guided note questions and be able to prepare for the exam this week. So the things we want to learn today are what are metabolic pathways, what's the formula for respiration, and then how do we get energy from the sun to you. Now, if at any time you want to pause this video so that you can be able to have time to write things down, please do so. Just know that I'm not going to try and pause in my lecture to give you time to write things down. So to start off, looking at the metabolic pathway, we want to look at the different molecules that we digest as a part of that pathway. The first one worth mentioning is cholesterol. Second, we have our proteins. We have fats. And there are many others, but one interesting one is DNA. And then finally, our carbohydrates. And we want to start by looking at starch. Okay. If you remember from the other day, your carbohydrates are your sugars, such as glucose, fructose, things like that. Now this picture here is a map showing all of the different metabolic pathways. And you can see, especially as I begin to zoom in, that it is a very complicated map showing all the different molecules that your body breaks down and converts into different molecules for all these different purposes, and only some of which are used primarily as digestion, though all of them can be used as a part of digestion. Okay, so I mentioned cholesterol. Okay, cholesterol, it would be at this point, and it would continue down until it gets down to this circle. Now this circle right here is key. This is where most of the energy comes from that your body uses. So our cholesterol would enter here. Our fatty acids follow the pathway, enter in the same spot. Some of our proteins, they would enter in right here, amino acids being proteins. And then our glucose or carbohydrates, they actually begin clear up here and continue down to this point in the cycle. Now, your body prefers to digest our carbohydrates, our glucose specifically, because it's the least energetically costly, okay, meaning that it requires the least amount of energy to break it down compared to how much energy we get out of it. And so it would prefer to go through this pathway here, though if you have an excess of those sugars, it can actually transition from there over to here and store those sugars as fats for later use if needed. Okay, now looking at our specific carbohydrate we talked about, which is starch, we need to answer the question, what is starch? Now starch is a polymer. So starch is a polymer of glucose. Okay, now a polymer is a molecule that repeats many times. Okay, so in this case, the molecule that is repeating is glucose right there. It repeats time and 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 time, lots of times. Repeats many times to make a much bigger molecule called starch. Okay, and we digest a lot of different starchy foods. Like potatoes have a lot of starch, as well as corn for your corn starch. Also rice, if you've ever had to wash rice, you're washing off that white powder, that's starch that you're washing off of the rice. Okay, so now that we understand that our food is broken down, has many different pathways, and that starch is a polymer of glucose, and we need to break that down into glucose to put it into that metabolic pathway. We'll say that we are finished with metabolic pathways. Next, we need to understand our formula for respiration. Okay, so our formula for respiration. Okay, and the formula goes like this: C6H12O6. We need to add to that 6 oxygen molecules. Those react to create 6 carbon dioxide and 6 water molecules, and we end up releasing energy. Okay? Now, looking at this formula, which is a formula that you will need to memorize, hopefully, the more you look at it, you begin to realize that this formula looks oddly familiar. Okay? If I actually just grab this formula right here, I'm going to copy it. Let's bring it down here where we have more space. Paste it right there. And then I'm going to grab another formula that we used in a different lecture about photosynthesis. Copy that. And bring that down as well. We begin to see that photosynthesis and respiration have a lot of similarities. If we look at our reactants in photosynthesis and our products in respiration, we should see that these two are the same. Now, even though the order glucose here and then oxygen is the opposite of over here where it says oxygen and glucose, they're the same thing. Just like 1 plus 2 is 3, but also 2 plus 1 is 3. They're opposites, they're inverted, but because it's an addition reaction, it's the same thing. Okay. Also here, if we look at the products of respiration, they are the same as the reactants in photosynthesis. Okay. These two are opposites of each other, and they are verbs. Photosynthesis and respiration are processes. They are not nouns. They occur in specific organelles. Photosynthesis, as we discussed before, occurs in chloroplast. Respiration occurs in what's called the mitochondria, okay, which is an organelle where respiration takes place. But they are mirrors of each other, but they're not things. They are actions. They are processes, okay, which then takes us to our energy processes. Okay, so energy from the sun is absorbed as electromagnetic radiation, more precisely called light. Okay, and that light is converted into chemical energy through the process of photosynthesis. Okay, so that's what's occurring right here. Then this is converted into mechanical energy and thermal energy through respiration. So, going back to our check marks, we've got formula for respiration, how the energy gets from the sun to you through photosynthesis and then respiration. And then in your notes, I did tell you to take a picture as well. I was wanting you to take a picture of these formulas instead of having to write them again. I just want you to understand that the reactants of one are the products of the other. Okay? These two are inverted. They are reverse of one another. Okay, and you also need to be able to identify one from the other. So you need to memorize both of these formulas, what makes them different from each other, and also understand their similarities. If you have any questions, as always, shoot me an email, and after you get these notes finished, make sure you get them submitted on Canvas.